Oh, so it looks like we have some people joining. We ready, Jen?
Let's do it.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kathy Stallkamp. I work in the College and Career Center at Tualatin High. Go ahead, Jen.
I'm Jennifer Butts, and I also work in the College and Career Center.
So tonight we're going to give a presentation about Naviance, how to use that to support your students, students to support themselves in finding careers, finding out some information about colleges. We're going to talk about scholarships, and then hopefully we have some time to briefly go through the College and Career website so I can show you some things on that, or Jen, one of us will. Next screen, Lisa. So Naviance has a lot of tools, and I will tell you that for the most part, I think our students and our families don't really use it a lot. It's something that's out there. Every student has access to it, and parents actually have access to it also. So if you're a parent on here and you would like to, as we review things, you'd like to find out a little bit more about it, get your account activated, one of the slides coming up tells you to contact us, and then we'll activate that for you. Some of the things Naviance does is it does a career cluster. We're going to talk through that a little bit. It's got some college lookup features. It has something called a super match, scattergrams. Those are all things I'm going to go through as I do the Naviance demo. It's the place where we list all of our college visits. So when schools come to Tualatin High and visit with our students, it's the way that you find out when that visit is and register to attend it. It is the system that we use to do our transcripts. It's how we students request their transcripts be sent to specific colleges. In Naviance, we have something that's called a brag sheet where students can write information on themselves, and then that information can be given to teachers so to help them write a recommendation letter. And then it's also the place we store our scholarship, all of our scholarship information. So I'm going to do a little demo on Naviance. Excuse me. And you can see that? Yes? Jen, can you see Naviance? Great. So in Naviance, I'm going to just talk briefly about this area up here in the right-hand corner, and that's where the tabs are. I'll refer to those as tabs. So there's the home, colleges, careers, about me, and my planner. The first place I'm going to take everybody is the About Me tab. And under My Assessments is the Career Cluster Finder. I talk to students a lot about it's really hard to pick a college if you don't know what you want to go to college for, right? So it's really nice to have a way to enter some interest, enter some information, and get information about what possible careers you maybe should consider or pursue. The Career Cluster Finder lets students, it's about an 8-minute survey where students would identify things of interest, activities they're interested in, classes that they're interested in, personality traits. Very quick to do. They just kind of click on the ones they like. And when they're done with that, it comes up with a list of possible clusters of professions that maybe they should explore. The one that I'm showing you, I just really quickly went in and just chose some things, honestly, without any thought. And so when you can look at, number one, just the clusters, but also down here is a ranking that kind of shows you based on what you put in, what your ranking is. And so you may see that you have a cluster that maybe is like a 55%. Well, that means that really matched a lot of the interests that you put in. Whereas maybe something down here in the smaller numbers didn't match that. On any one of these clusters, you can go click on that. It'll tell you a little bit of an overview about the cluster, and then it'll actually give you occupations related to that. And the student can then go into that. Let's go into, let's say, computer hardware engineers. So you can click on that and just kind of dive in and learn about that position, that job. So it gives you an overview. It tells you about the knowledge and skills that are needed for that job. It tells you about kind of what a typical task would be for that job. And then what are the national wages and what are, in this case, we're in Alabama. In ours, it should say Oregon, but it'll tell you what the jobs are or what the salary is for that position. So we use this a lot with our students just as a very quick way to do evaluation of different careers. And I have found that a lot of times what we usually do is have the students take the test and then we talk through it. You know, we'll say, okay, it says engineering. What do you think about that? Do you like to work with your hands? Does that sound like something of interest? Let's take some of these jobs and look at them. So it's a great way for them to explore different careers. If they say, oh no, that's just definitely not me for some reason, then we can go and explore another one. And maybe that other one's something in the health field. And so we'll talk about that. But it's gives them ideas of careers that sometimes they've never even thought about. So great place to go to start out. One of the other tabs that we use a lot is the colleges tab. And I am going to start with talking about the super match because I think this is just a great feature that Naviance has. So in the super match, it allows you to put different criteria that a student wants when they're looking at a college. So maybe I'm going to say, you know, I want a college in the West. And I want a school that has a bachelor's degree. And let's say I want to go for accounting. And let's make my GPA higher. Let's say I'm a 3.5. And let's see, I really want a school that offers internships. And I want co-ed. I don't want to go to school that's just male or female. So you can go through and just kind of select these. And you'll notice as I'm selecting them, some of the choices here are changing. You can put in that you want what kind of cost you want to look at. You can put down if you want, let's say I really want a school that has a football team. And what the results are then is it gives you schools that are within those parameters that you identified for you to consider. What if you went up here and you said, you know what, there's just, I don't know, no way I want to live in, let's pick on poor Hawaii. No, let's do Alaska. So you'll notice that just totally changed the results. And when you look at the schools that it picks, it tells you based on the criteria that you selected, this school meets 100% of those criteria. As we kept our criteria pretty broad. It could have said, maybe it only meets 90%. And you may think, well, then why even show it to me? Well, it still gives you something to look at and something to consider. And sometimes schools you hadn't really even thought of. Up here, the other thing you could do is you could say those schools have to have these criteria, or, oh, maybe it would be nice to have an internship, but it's not critical. I'm saying I may go to school that has that. So you can really set those criteria differently and then look at the various schools and do evaluation on them. And then, like I said, it'll, give you information on the costs. It'll tell you about the GPA. And then at any point, you can go up here and change those criteria and refine what you're looking for. And then you can click on that school and get information on it. Maybe. So I could have also just searched on colleges, but here it tells me for Corbin University what the price is, what the graduation rate, what the acceptance rate is. So of the people that apply, how many get accepted, and then just various information on the school. I'm going to talk to you briefly about this graduation rate. That's a number most people don't even consider when they're looking at a school. And what that is it's saying 57% of the students graduate after attending there for 4 years. In 6 years, 65%. This is a number that I would focus on. I didn't focus on when my kids went to school, but I would focus on now, because what you'll find is the rate of, if you think about people that go to a college, only 57% of those graduate in 4 years. The higher that number is, the greater the likelihood of your student graduating in 4 years from that school. So back on the colleges tab, one of the other main things we use this for is, if I scroll down here, are college visits. So I just put in a couple test ones just so you could see what that looks like. But this is what we use to not only schedule our college visits, but for our students to register to attend. So if a student looked up here and saw all the different colleges coming and they said, hey, this college number 2, that's really where I want to go, they can register for that. And then they get information on the date and the time and who the representative is. And then they can print that or show that to their teacher to confirm that they, in our case, can get out of class and come to that college visit. So super easy to use. We also list all of our college visits in our announcements, but to actually register for them, our students have to come into Naviance and register to attend that. Let's see, one of the other big things that you probably noticed is the scholarship and money. So the scholarship list in Naviance, there's a college specific one and then local regional. The local regional one is the one that I want to direct people to. And these are scholarships that we have entered in that are scholarships that we think our students might be interested in. They could be local ones where you have to live in the city of Tualatin, or you have to attend Tualatin High, or you have to live in Washington County, or possibly Oregon. So those will be listed here. If you click on any one of those scholarships, it'll go give you more information about that scholarship. So it tells you what the website is, when the scholarships due, how much the award is, and then just some information on that scholarship. I'm going to talk a little bit about another place that we store scholarships in just a little bit, but every scholarship we have that we promote actively is in Naviance. We list both national ones and local ones, and we obviously don't do all of them, but the national ones we list are the ones that we think possibly our students could be attracted to or could qualify for. And then I want to talk about scattergrams. So I'm going to show it here. Unfortunately, because I'm on a demo, I can't show you exactly what it looks like here. I'm going to go back to my presentation and show you a screenshot of that. But it's under college and scattergrams. And Lisa, if you'll jump us back to the presentation, to the scattergram slide. Next. Keep going. Okay, so this is one of my favorite features of Naviance. And what this is it's a way that the student can enter a college that they're considering. And on this slide, do you see the, Lisa, can you circle around the little blue dot? Yeah, right there. So that's an indication of where this particular student's test scores and GPA are. And it compares that test score and GPA with their possible acceptance into a college. So in this case, maybe I'm looking at University of Oregon. All the green checks are students from our school that were accepted into that school. All the red ones are students that were denied. And then all the purplish ones are ones that were waitlisted. So the reason I think this thing is so valuable is students really stress out a lot about, am I going to get accepted into a school or not? So if we pull the screen up, we can say, hey, look where your GPA is, look where your test scores are. Based on that information, most of the students that had similar test scores or GPAs got accepted into school. So relax. The other thing I sometimes tell students is, oh, look at where you are. Let's look at where other people are. So let's talk about reality. And the reality is, maybe you aren't going to go there directly after high school. Maybe you're going to go to community college. Doesn't mean this school is out of your reach. It just means you may have to take a slightly different path. So this particular tool really gives a piece of reality and sometimes just a piece of calmness that's involved with the whole college process to make it a little bit easier. If you are going into the scattergrams, the one thing you will probably have to do, and again, I'm sorry I can't show it to you, but this right now is comparing weighted GPA with SAT. Our students take the ACT, so you will want to do the drop-down button and change that to ACT. If you leave it SAT, usually you're going to have almost no results. But if you do ACT, then it will show you based on what our students have done. And the information that's in there is based off of the previous year. So, there is the potential that maybe you pick a school that nobody applied to, but for the most part, there should be at least a couple kids have applied in the past to most schools that we'll be looking at. So, okay, Lisa, go to the next slide. So as I was saying, both students and parents can have access to Naviance. We have to authorize the parents access. And if you are interested in that, please email me and just say, please sign me up for Naviance. You'll get an email that'll tell you then how to log in. The way Naviance is set up is just on immediate access. You'll only have access to your oldest child. So if you have more than one child that you want to look at the same time, please make sure and tell us that. And that's only the students in high school, but then we can then add those other children on there so you have the choice to see more than one student at a time. Okay, next. So I showed you the Naviance scholarships, and I said everything's in there, but I'm going to tell you that I, from the beginning, have not been very happy with the way Naviance works for scholarships. And one of the reasons is, if you'll remember when I showed it, pulled it up, and I showed you the name of that scholarship, I then had to click on that scholarship to get in and find out what that scholarship was about. In Naviance, it shows how much the scholarship's for, it shows the due date, it shows the name, but that leaves a whole lot of information out there. And the only way that you're going to know that is to click on every single one to do a review and evaluate if it's something that's critical to you. So I created a spreadsheet that basically has almost the same information on it. And what is really key about this spreadsheet is if you look at column C, that column is keywords. So at a glance, you can look at that list and say, does this scholarship apply to me or not? So if you look at line number 3, that dream scholarship, it's only for girls or females. If you're a male, you don't even want to bother spending the time to look at it, right? Number 7, line 7, the Hollywood Lights is for somebody that's going into theater, somebody who's had experience with theater. So again, if that's not you, don't spend your time looking at it. So those keywords just let people go through and very quickly identify if a scholarship is pertinent to them. The rest of the scholarship is similar to the information in Naviance in that it's got the due date, it has the name, it has the amount. If there's a GPA requirement, it lists that. If there's a website, it lists that. And then one of the differences is on the spreadsheet, the description, we keep really short here. So you can get more information sometimes in Naviance or more information if you go to the website. The other thing we've added is we've added kind of what we're calling an applicant area. So that identifies, is this a local scholarship? Is it a regional one? And regional would really be Pacific Northwest, or is it national? And that's really important so you know what your competition is. You know, if it's local, you could be competing against 8 to 20. If it's national, you could be competing against 20,000 or more. So we just feel like that's important information for you to know to evaluate kind of where you put your energies. This spreadsheet can be found on the Tualatin High College and Career website. And as we get through the presentation, at the end, I'm going to go through the website really quickly and I'll show everybody how to access that and get that information. Next. So from that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about scholarships. And one of the big things that a lot of people don't know is kind of what's needed to apply for scholarship and what's not. So you don't have to have the best GPA. You don't have to have straight A's. You don't have to have a really high ACT score. You don't even have to know exactly what college you're going to go to. And you don't have to be a US citizen. There's a lot of times I find that students really don't, they're hesitant to apply because maybe they don't have some of those criteria. Next, Lisa. Oops. So what do you need? You'll probably need your ACT, SAT scores. You'll need to have a transcript almost certainly for a lot of them. A lot of the scholarships want to know about your volunteer experience, your work experience, what activities you did in school, if you have received any kind of honors, what your family financial information is. That's pretty critical. And on a lot of them, they may not ask you exactly what it is, but they may say, what's your FAFSA EFC? You know, did you fill out FAFSA? Tell us about the financial situation. Most scholarships require a couple of letters of recommendation, anywhere from 1 to 2. So kind of gathering that information prior to your senior year is really helpful. I like to tell students, especially before their senior year, start writing down all your volunteer experience, all your club activities, your sports, everything you've done for the last 4 years. Compile that, get that together, and you'll be ready for the scholarships. Because the scholarship season really starts quick in the fall. And so the more of that you can pull together ahead of time really helps. Next, sorry, I forgot to say next. So there's a whole big variety of scholarships. I'm going to go through some of them and just, I'm going to talk about some specifics, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of some broad-based ones. So one of the places people get a lot of scholarships from are colleges. And most colleges, private and public, do give some kind of scholarships to students. It really varies. Usually those are based on either GPA, very heavily GPA. They look at admissions essays. They look at involvement. And then let me get to the next one first. So that involvement may be, maybe you're gonna be on the soccer team. And so with being on the soccer team, they're gonna give you some money. Maybe they'll look at your essays and then your GPA and activities you did, and they offer some special scholarship where somebody that went to that school, an alumni member, has given that. And so they may pass your application to the college off, and then those people will look at it and pick, you know, a student out. That kind of happens a little bit randomly. Some colleges have specific scholarships that they give just based on GPA. So that's changed a little bit this last year with COVID, but in the past, like OSU would say, if you have a 3.8 and a certain ACT score, you get 7,000 a year, or no, I think it was 6,000 a year for 4 years. So colleges will give specific scholarships based on those factors. The other thing some of the schools do is they'll actually give you a scholarship if you attend various events. So for example, Portland State just recently had an event. Any junior that attended it was guaranteed a $1,000 scholarship at Portland State. A lot of times the private schools will offer that. And Jen was telling me today her daughter attended several things for George Fox. And as a result of that, got $4,000 of scholarships from George Fox, just from attending 4 events, right, Jen? So, you know, if you look at it like an hour or 2 of your time for $1,000, not a bad return on your investment. And then the scholarships can really vary. So they can be anywhere from $1,000 to, especially private schools, will sometimes give scholarships of $16,000, $20,000. And a lot of times those private schools will take those scholarship money and make it so that the cost of the school is somewhat equivalent to a public school. That's pretty common that happens. So, okay, next. I want to talk just a little bit about kind of some very specific scholarships that are attached to colleges around us, just for awareness. So Western Oregon offers a bilingual teacher scholars program, and students that want to be a teacher that are bilingual can apply for that, and they get money every year. I think it's about a $4,000 scholarship. Oregon State offers a Scholar Dollars program where students can apply for different things and get money through that. Oregon State offers a robotics scholarship, so any of our students who are on the robotics team can apply for that and get that scholarship. University of Oregon offers a couple different scholarships, a diversity scholarship, a presidential scholarship, and the STAMP scholarship. I want to just address those presidential scholarships. A lot of people go into applying for college thinking that maybe their child can get those presidential scholarship. Those are not very often given. That's usually a full tuition scholarship. Our school between Oregon State and University of Oregon will typically have, I would say, 1 to 4 students receive that a year. So we do have students receive those, but it's not a frequent thing. Portland Community College has a foundation and they give scholarships out through there. If you have a student going to PCC, tell them to apply. They say that they often don't have enough applicants to give all the money away through their foundation. And then Portland State has a separate group of scholarships that you have to apply separately to that. X6 is a scholarship that pays full tuition to George Fox and Warner Pacific for 4 years. Students have to apply for that. They have to be interviewed. But again, they get full tuition to George Fox and Warner Pacific. And then the Black United Fund of Oregon offers some scholarships through the colleges listed there. And then the Washington County Diverse Educator Pathway Program is a program that's fairly new. And it's for students that live in Western, or that are going to attend Western Oregon to be a teacher. That program offers not only a scholarship for the students, but then they work in the summers for local schools, and they get paid for working, but they work with students kind of in a, almost a, what is that called? Teaching, like a student teacher, that's it. Assisting. So then when they graduate, they have some experience in teaching, they've received this scholarship, they have money that they've earned, and they're guaranteed a interview with one of our schools. So kind of a cool program. Next. Another scholarship that's offered is the Oregon Promise. You may have heard about that. It is put on by the state of Oregon, and it offers 2 years of community college for students. In order to get that, they have to have a 2.5 GPA, they have to have lived in Oregon 1 year, and they have to file either FAFSA or ORSA. So FAFSA is for US citizens, permanent residents, DACA students, and then ORSA is for undocumented. That has to be completed by June 1st for students, wrong year, 2021, for students who are graduating in June. There are different deadlines for students that are graduating early. So if you were graduating, let's say in February, you have a different deadline than that June date. The Oregon Promise is about 6 years old. And I can tell you that every single year they funded this thing differently. So there was 1 year where every single student who applied received funding. There was another year where only the students who had a pretty high need received funding. The current year that we're in, anybody who had a FAFSA EFC, so estimated family contribution of 44,000 or less, received funding. And so I worked with a student who was in that. He didn't qualify for a Pell Grant through FAFSA, but he ended up getting that 38, 34 to pay for community college. And the cost of community college for if you're taking a full load is right around $5,000. So it would pay for the majority of it. If you get funded your first year, you're guaranteed to be funded your second year, as long as there are some GPA requirement. So Oregon Promise, the application's super easy. It takes about 5 minutes or so to apply. Yeah, pretty easy to qualify for that. As I said, 2.5 GPA, live in Oregon for a year. And then the financial thing is what changes a little bit every year. Okay, next. I always mention military scholarships. I believe personally that military is not for everybody, but it is for some people. And the military offers just a great opportunity to get college paid for. There are choices through either the military academy. Students can do reserve officer training where they go to a college and then also are in the military. They can do active duty where they sign up to just be in the military all the time, and then they get tuition assistance in the GI Bill after they've been in for their active duty. They can also do reserve duty. I'm going to talk about that one a little bit because I've had some students do that, which is super interesting. So I've had some students who have joined the reserves and they get to pick their school, and then 1 week in a month, they go do their duty in the military. They get paid for housing, they get paid for their tuition, plus they get a salary. And so for some students, it's a way to get it to pay for a college that maybe they can't go to. And what we've talked about a little bit is that reserve can be almost like a part-time job. So if you think about 1 week in a month, 2 weeks during the year, during the summer, they have to go do the reserve duty. But then, like I said, you get your tuition paid for, you get a housing benefit, and then you get a salary. So it's just kind of an interesting option for people who maybe paying for college isn't an option for them. Oregon National Guard, very similar to reserve. The difference is that Oregon National Guard, they stay in Oregon. Most of the programs, though, there's a 4 to 8 year commitment depending on which one you're looking at. So again, not for everybody, but it's just something to be aware of. Okay, next. So in addition to the other scholarships I talked about, there's just a whole ton of private scholarships. And those private scholarships that are out there, really cover just this wide range of things. It can cover ethnicity. It can be for students that are first in the family. It could be a specific field of study. So it could say, you know, this is for engineers, or this is for somebody in medical, or somebody going into nursing. There are scholarships that only focus on essays. So there are some that they'll give you a topic, they want you to go do research, and then they just read that essay. There are also some that focus on videos and some that focus on art projects. Some scholarships really look at financial need. And so that is another really big part that plays into different scholarships that we offer, we promote. Next.
My favorite scholarship, Kathy, can I interject? This
Yes.
year, there was a new one that came out, I believe, that was for vegetarians and promoting vegetarianism. I just thought that was a wonderful scholarship. What a great idea. So funky different topics for scholarships.
Yeah, there's one that's the it's a pay it forward. So you're supposed to do something kind for somebody and then post something about it, and then the next person does something kind and you get points for that. Like there's just this wide range of, there's one that's called the PB&J scholarship. It's just, there's one that's like it's called the loser scholarship, and it's about people that don't necessarily have great grades but have a desire to go to school and potential. So you just never know what you're going to see. One of the places that you can find a lot of information on scholarships is OSAC. So that is the Oregon, or the Office of Student Access and Completion. So it's run by the state of Oregon. They have about 600 scholarships in there. It's a, fill one application out and you can apply for a whole bunch of scholarships through it. Every year it has an early bird deadline, and then it has the actual deadline on March 1st. So I see we have the 2020 dates on there, but next year it'll be 2022. So this specific scholarship, or this group of scholarships, one reason I really encourage our students to apply to that is that the King City Lions Club offers scholarships through OSAC. And they give anywhere from, I think this year there's 8, but 8 up to, they've given as many as 13 scholarships to students at Tualatin High. Those scholarships are like $1,000 each. And they have one group that's for community college only, and then they have another group that's for a community college or university. And so I encourage our students to apply for that because that's the only way they can apply for that specific scholarship. In addition, there are other scholarships that are offered through the OSAC website. And there are some in there that we've had students receive that are first in the family. There are some that are specific to like engineering or architecture or a health field. There's a lot of essay type of things. The one thing I will say about the OSAC scholarships, it's really hard to weed through all the scholarships and figure out which ones apply to you. I tell students, if you only apply for the King City one, that's great. If you want to apply for others, we have a spreadsheet specific for OSAC, similar to the one I showed for the other scholarships. So that's available and just, again, helps people look through the list really quickly and identify if it's one they may want to apply to. Next. Losing my voice, sorry. So on this page, I've listed a lot of the local scholarships that we have that our students typically apply to and receive. And I'm going to go through those very quickly just to kind of give you an idea of some of what's out there. So Corporal Matthew Lemke was a Tualatin High student that joined the Marines and unfortunately died. His parents set up a scholarship in his name, and that scholarship is given to Tualatin High students every year. Lamb Research offers a scholarship to Tualatin High That's a $10,000 scholarship, $2,500 for 4 years. And they have a group of core values that's like teamwork and honesty and creativity and there's a whole list of it. And it's, having this, putting an essay together that describes how the student matches those core values. So again, that's given to a Tualatin High student every year. The Foundation for Tigard-Tualatin has a group of scholarships that they give out. They have several that are specific to Tualatin High, and those come out every spring. The TSO gives a scholarship. And let's see, Kaiser Permanente gives a scholarship every year to a student from Tualatin High that is planning to study healthcare. I'm losing my voice. Jen, you want to jump in and do a couple? Thanks.
Well, I think, let's see. So the Tualatin Historical Society Scholarship is, again, another one that is for Tualatin High students. And as you can see, Tualatin Soccer Scholarship as well. I don't know, there's the King City Lions Scholarship, which is different than the one through OSAC. So there is that one that is due later than the OSAC scholarship, which is nice. The due date's a little bit later. The rest of them on here, there's Byram Elementary that is for students, and Alberta Rider students that graduated from those elementary schools. And the superintendent and the TTEA scholarships are also available. And there's a bunch of the TTA scholarships in that one that are, there's a whole bunch of different ones underneath that umbrella. And students are able to go in there, and there's a bunch of different criteria for students to complete.
I'm going to stop you. That's the foundation where there's a bunch.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The TTA and TTSD are for students that are going into education.
My bad.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking over, though.
Well, this is more one yeah, okay, go ahead.
Then the ACE scholarship is for students doing architecture, construction, engineering. ACE has a mentorship program, and a good chunk of the students who go through that mentorship program that happens every winter from like January to about March, they go through this program where they go into Portland once a week. They work with engineers, architects to design something. A good chunk of those students end up getting anywhere from $2,000 up to about $8,000 in scholarship money. And then the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber gives a lot of scholarships. Students do have to be Hispanic to apply for it. But I have been just shocked. They probably give away about 50, maybe more, scholarships to students in the Portland area. And it's very common for Tualatin High to have students who end up getting those. Next. So how can you find all these scholarship opportunities? Well, I told you about Naviance. I mentioned our spreadsheet. The other thing you can do is look on scholarship databases. And actually, part of our spreadsheet, we have a tab that's like safe databases that you can look at on the internet. I always tell people, don't pay money. Don't ever, you need to, there's so many scholarship databases out there. You do want to be a little bit careful because they will spam you. You'll just get tons of stuff. The other thing is, if you're in a club, if you're part of a group, find out if they have scholarships. Sometimes your bank will offer scholarships. They're just like kind of almost out there everywhere. And then parents, a lot of times their place of employment will offer scholarships. So, okay, Lisa. So I like to tell people like kind of the reality of, you always hear about the students that get just a ton of money. And the reality is with a national scholarship, a lot of times it's really hard to win one of those. I was reading some statistics on Coca-Cola, they give out a lot of scholarships, but it's something like 1 in 10 or 15,000 that actually get a scholarship. For every 10 to 15,000 applications, they give out one actual award. Where if you look at locally, a lot of times those scholarships aren't as big, but sometimes on a local level, we'll only have surprisingly 5 people apply, maybe 10, maybe 20 if we're lucky. So a lot of times that competition is much, much smaller. And, that's always a good thing when you're competing against less. I tell the students a lot of times, like, if they focus sometimes on the smaller scholarships, they're going to actually have a better chance. Everybody wants the 10,000, the 20,000 ones. People sometimes don't apply to $500 and $1,000 scholarships. And so there's less people there. But if you win 5 of those, I don't know, adds up pretty quickly. When students are first working on scholarships, it can be quite time consuming. And so they need to kind of give it the initial amount of time. But what happens is the more they apply to, that time commitment goes down, and they're able to start pulling things from, they'll look at something and go, oh, I wrote that essay on that scholarship, so they can pull that forward. And the more they do, the less work it is. My own son applied to a scholarship that it took him less than an hour to apply to. Of course, he had done several before that, but he was awarded $2,500. And so basically I just said, I don't know where you make $2,500 an hour, pretty good money. Again, he had done some work up front, but as long as they work on a bunch and then they're able to just pull things in quickly, it gets easier and easier the more they apply. I also tell students, like, don't get disappointed if you don't win. You're not going to win them all. And not winning the scholarship is not an indication of your value or what type of student you'll be. A lot of time it really, really depends on what that committee is looking for, what they're hoping to obtain or find in a student. And you never know who's on that committee and exactly what they're focused on. So I tell people, don't get discouraged, just keep doing it. Eventually you'll get one. Okay, next. Some tips for scholarships. Essays, super important. Make sure the essay is interesting. Make sure that you've read the prompt and you know exactly what they're asking of you. I'd like to pick on my son a little bit and tell about, he applied for 2 different scholarships, almost identical. And in the first one, he wrote, I'm a good student, I work really hard, I'm honorable, I'm dedicated. And it was just, it told his story, but it was very boring. And in the next essay, or the later scholarship, he wrote, as I sat in the lunchroom with my first grade friends, and the smell of pizza wafted in the air, someone jettisoned an orange across the room and it splatted in front of me. I shook my head, looked at my friends and said, what would your mother think of that? And he was telling a story that basically showed that he was honorable, showed that he did the right thing, showed that even at a young age, he had certain characteristics. He didn't win the first scholarship, he did win the second. And I really think it's how he wrote that essay. He grabbed the reader in, he really showed the reader who he was as a person in a more interesting, engaging way. So I tell students, really try to do that. Give it a real concrete example that shows who you are, and rather than just telling them I'm honorable, show that you're honorable. Make sure that somebody proofs your essay, super important. I've been on a scholarship committee where if they found grammar mistakes, if they found punctuation mistakes, they marked people down for that. So that is surprisingly very, very important. And I also tell students, really think about who your recommendation letters are written by. Some people write very detailed personal recommendation letters that really give insight into the student and what that student's about. And other people use kind of a form letter, and they just change the name and change the college, and off it goes. So think about that. Think about who you want to write those letters that's going to benefit you the most. Scholarships, there's two heavy times for our scholarships. The fall is when a lot of the national ones are, and in the spring is when our local ones come out. I would say from February to June, scholarship time is pretty intense at Tualatin High. And the truth is there's usually more scholarships than students can apply for. And sometimes students have to make a choice during that time on which ones are more relevant for them. Next. Okay, so let me see, I have our website, so I'm gonna share that. Okay, can you see it? Yes? Okay. So a lot of information that we've gone over in the last couple of weeks is on our website. And so I just want to do a really brief introduction of it. We have a group of tabs up here. So home, college, work in the trades, the military, jobs, internships and volunteering, communications, and contact. So our homepage is just general information about college and career, things we do, some announcements. Under college, we have a page on the ACT, we have a page on Naviance, a page on essays. We have multiple pages about ways to pay for college. The college visits that you saw in Naviance, we have a calendar. There's nothing on there now because we don't actually have any visits, but that gets updated to show all of our college visits. We have a whole page on trades and trades that students can explore. We have a whole page on the military and who our recruiters are. And then it tells a little bit about active versus reserve duty. We have a page where we list local job opportunities. Companies call us all the time with jobs, and so we post that here. So if a student's looking for a job, this is a great place to look. Similarly, we have a page with volunteer opportunities. Every time somebody calls us with a new volunteer opportunity, we put that on here. And those volunteer opportunities become really important on scholarship applications. I don't think I mentioned that, but the more volunteering, I like to tell people, like, if you think about your competition when you're applying for a scholarship, if two students have the same GPA, they were both involved in a couple of clubs at the school, but one did a lot more volunteering. A lot of times that carries a lot of weight. So the more they can be involved, the better. And then we have a page where our communications, where we list the different, the presentations we've been giving, the recordings, and then our newsletters. And then lastly, our contact. So information about us, and we have some interns who are no longer with us, but we'll have new ones on there next year. So, oh, I was going to go to the scholarship thing. So college, paying for college, scholarships. And right here at the top, click here for the scholarship list. That's how you access that scholarship list that I showed you earlier. And Lisa, next.
And one thing, Kathy, to get to the scholarship or to get to the website, it's under the counseling tab. So it's the Tualatin High School website right under the counseling tab, college career.
Yep. Yeah, which it says right there.
There it is right there.
Yep. Okay. And what's next, Lisa? So just our contact information. So that is our presentation tonight. Are there any questions anybody has? I think you can put that in chat or Q&A, correct, Lisa?
Looks like we just have the Q&A available tonight.
Okay, so if you have a question, if you put that in the Q&A, and we'll do what we can to answer it. Maybe nothing. Okay. Well, thank you all very much for attending. Our contact information is up there if you have any questions. Oh,
Oh,
we
there's
have
one.
one. Oh, somebody said thank you. You're welcome. Feel free to contact us. Jen and I are both available to meet with parents, meet with students, any way we can help. Thank you.
Thank you.
My
Sorry.
voice. Man, long day.
Are we still recording, Lisa?
Well, are you staying on for the second session or what was the